Welcome to the Fame Files, episode 20. Sometimes it's like you think you know someone, right? Someone you see on TV all the time, and then bam, something comes out that just flips the whole script.
It's true. You get so used to seeing these familiar faces, especially in the world of antiques, and it can be jarring when allegations like this surface.
Totally. And that's exactly why we're doing this deep dive. Today we're looking into Charles Hanson, the auctioneer.
From Bargain Hunt.
Yeah, Bargain Hunt. He's been a fixture on that show for years, but now he's facing some pretty serious accusations.
And it's those accusations that we're going to untangle today. Try to get a clearer picture of what's going on.
So first things first, for anyone who might not be glued to Bargain Hunt like some of us, can you just give us a little rundown of what the show's all about and who Charles Hanson is within that world?
Sure. Bargain Hunt is this really popular British show. It's been running for ages. And basically, you've got these two teams. They're competing to buy antiques at like fairs and markets and stuff. The goal is to find hidden treasures, things they can then sell at auction for a profit.
Right. So they need a keen eye, a bit of luck, and I'm guessing some expert guidance along the way.
Exactly. And that's where Charles Hanson comes in. He's one of the experts on the show. He's been doing it for years and years. His job is to mentor one of the teams using his knowledge of antiques to help them, spot those potential bargains and hopefully avoid any costly mistakes.
And he's really become a familiar face, right?
Right.
I mean, people love him, right?
Yeah, he's got this really friendly, approachable personality, kind of like the guy next door who also happens to know a ton about antiques. He's definitely one of the show's most popular figures.
But now, like we were saying, there's this whole other side to the story emerging. These accusations paint a very different picture.
Yeah. The charges are pretty serious. We're talking about one count of assault occasioning actual bodily harm, which is from way back in May 2020.
And it doesn't stop there, right?
No, there are also two counts of assault by beating, one from May 2022 and another from just this past May 2023.
Wow. So this isn't just a single isolated incident.
Right. And then on top of the assault charges, there's this accusation of controlling and coercive behavior that's really raising eyebrows.
That sounds pretty intense. What does controlling and coercive behavior actually mean in this context?
Basically, it refers to a pattern of actions that someone uses to harm, punish, or frighten their partner. It's all about maintaining power and control within the relationship.
So we're not just talking about physical abuse here.
No, not necessarily. Controlling and coercive behavior can take many forms. It could be isolating someone from their friends and family, controlling their finances, constantly monitoring their movements, or even dictating what they wear or how they spend their time.
So it's really about creating an atmosphere of fear and intimidation.
Exactly. It's a way for the abuser to exert dominance and keep their partner trapped in a cycle of abuse.
And these accusations, along with the assault charges, they all stem from a domestic incident that happened at Hansen's home. Is that right?
That's right. It happened back in June of this year, 2023.
And the alleged victim in all of this is his estranged wife, Rebecca Ludlam.
Yes, Hansen and Ludlam were married back in 2010, but they've been separated for some time now.
Okay, so it's important to remember that all of this is still unfolding. Hansen maintains his innocence. He's denied all the charges and claims that, marital difficulties have been misconstrued.
And he is fully cooperating with the investigation and the legal process. But regardless of how the trial plays out, these allegations are already having a massive impact on Hansen's career.
Yeah, he stepped back from Bargain Hunt and other TV work while all of this gets sorted out. And the court has imposed pretty strict bail conditions. Like, he's not allowed to have any contact with his wife.
It's a big deal, especially for someone whose career is so public-facing. It raises so many questions like, can we separate the art from the artist? Can people still enjoy watching Hansen on Bargain Hunt, knowing these accusations are out there?
It's a conversation that's happening all over, not just with Hansen, but with so many public figures who face these kinds of allegations. Where do we draw the line? What responsibility do we, as viewers, have when it comes to the private lives of celebrities?
It's tough. There are no easy answers. We're all kind of figuring this out as we go along.
Right, and it's crucial to let the legal process run its course. We can't jump to conclusions. But at the same time, these allegations raise some really important questions about fame, power, and the potential for things to go wrong, even in seemingly happy relationships.
It's like a peek behind the curtain. It makes you realize that even those who appear to have it all might be struggling with things we know nothing about.
And it highlights how crucial it is to take domestic abuse seriously, no matter who's involved. To understand the full scope of how this case could affect Hansen's career, it's helpful to look at his background. He's not just a TV personality. He's a big name in the antiques world.
Oh, absolutely. He's got a long and successful career outside of bargain hunt. He actually started out as a surveyor back in '99, got his qualifications, and then not long after that, he landed a job at Christie's.
Christie's, the auction house.
Yep, the one and only. He was in their ceramics and glass department, really made a name for himself there, clearly a guy who knows his stuff.
So he was already making waves in the antiques world before bargain hunt came along.
Yeah, but joining Bargain Hunt in 2002 really catapulted him into the public eye. He was only 25 at the time, made him the youngest expert on the show. That's gotta be some kind of record.
So he was a bit of a prodigy, and from there, his career just kept growing.
Definitely. He established his own auctioneering business in Derbyshire in 2005, and then in 2018, he opened Hansen's London, expanding his reach even further.
So we're talking about decades of building a reputation, a successful business, a whole career. These allegations, no matter the outcome of the trial, have the potential to damage all of that.
Oh, without a doubt. It could have huge consequences. Sponsors might back away, TV appearances could dry up, and there's that loss of public trust that can be really hard to regain. This case really underlines how fragile a reputation can be, especially when you're in the public eye like Hansen is.
It really is that double-edged sword of fame, isn't it? It opens doors, but it also leaves you incredibly vulnerable.
For sure. When you're in the public eye, everything you do is magnified, scrutinized, and in cases like this where serious allegations arise, the court of public opinion can be swift and unforgiving.
It makes you think about the pressures that come with that level of fame. And this whole situation really forces us to confront some uncomfortable truths about how we view celebrities and the potential for, abuse of power. It's a conversation we need to have, one that extends far beyond just the world of antiques and television.
It's really got me thinking, about how this case, with all the attention it's getting, sort of shines a light on domestic abuse and how power plays out in relationships. It feels like something that doesn't get talked about nearly enough.
Yeah, it's like we hear about these things happening, but maybe because Hansen's in the spotlight, it makes it all seem so much more real.
Exactly. It's a reminder that domestic abuse can happen to anyone. It doesn't matter who you are, what you do, how much money you have. It crosses all those boundaries. And it's a reminder that what we see on the surface, that public image, can be so different from what's really going on behind closed doors.
And like we touched on earlier, domestic abuse isn't always physical. The fact that Hansen is facing those charges of controlling and coercive behavior, well, that adds a whole other dimension to this case.
It really does. It's not just about the physical acts of violence. It's about that constant manipulation, that intimidation, that isolation that just wears a person down. It takes away their sense of self, their independence.
And it can be so hard to even recognize what's happening when you're in the middle of it.
Absolutely. It's like a slow burn, The abuser might start by making small, seemingly harmless demands. But over time, those demands escalate. They tighten their grip, and before the victim even realizes it, they're trapped in this web of control.
It's insidious, isn't it? So for those listening who might not be totally clear on what controlling and coercive behavior actually means, can you break it down for us a bit more?
Sure. It's actually a pretty new legal concept in the UK, only introduced in 2015, but it was a huge step forward in recognizing that domestic abuse goes way beyond physical assaults.
So before that, it was harder to prosecute cases where there wasn't clear physical evidence.
Yeah, it could be really tough. But now, with this legislation, a pattern of behavior that demonstrates that intent to control and manipulate a partner, that can be enough to build a case.
So this case with Hansen could potentially set a precedent for how these types of charges are handled when we're talking about someone in the public eye.
No question. The outcome of this trial could really have a ripple effect on how we as a society understand and address domestic abuse, not just in the legal system, but in our everyday lives.
It also makes you think about the role of the media in all of this, right?
Yeah.
There's a fine line between reporting on what's happening and, I don't know, maybe swaying public opinion before the trial's even started.
It's tricky, especially with someone like Hansen who's so well known. There's a public interest in knowing what's going on, but there's also that risk of creating a media frenzy that could potentially prejudice a jury.
We've already seen so much discussion online, so many news articles, people trying to make sense of it all.
It's natural for people to be curious, but it's so important to remember that everyone is innocent until proven guilty. We have to let the legal process play out.
It's easy to get caught up in the speculation and the gossip, but we can't lose sight of the fact that at the heart of all of this, There are real people whose lives are being deeply affected.
Absolutely. Hansen and his estranged wife, they're both going through something incredibly difficult and painful, regardless of how the trial turns out. And the media sometimes forgets that. They focus on the sensational aspects, but there are families involved, there are reputations at stake, and there are emotional wounds that could take a long time to heal.
It's a stark reminder that fame and fortune don't shield you from life's messy realities. Relationships break down, accusations fly, and even those who seem to have it all can find themselves facing some really tough challenges.
It's like we put celebrities on this pedestal, but this case forces us to confront the fact that they're human, just like the rest of us. They're not immune to making mistakes, to going through tough times, to facing these kinds of allegations.
And it reminds us that we can't just make assumptions about someone's life based on what we see in the public eye.
Absolutely. It highlights the importance of having open, honest conversations about these difficult topics, about domestic abuse, about power imbalances in relationships. These conversations need to happen no matter who's involved.
So as we keep digging into this case, I'm curious, what about this whole thing surprised you the most? Were there any specific details or angles that jumped out at you?
You know what really struck me, and we touched on this a little bit earlier, was the addition of those controlling and coercive behavior charges. It's not just about the assault allegations, which are serious enough on their own, but this added layer suggests something more. It points to a pattern of behavior, not just isolated incidents.
It's like you said before, peeling back those layers of the onion.
Yeah, exactly. And I think that's where the media sometimes falls short. They want to give you a simple story, a clear hero and villain. But real life, especially in a case like this, is rarely that black and white.
We like easy answers, but this case is anything but easy.
And that's okay. It's a good reminder that there are always multiple sides to every story. We need to be careful about making judgments before all the facts are in. We have to respect the legal process, and we need to be mindful of the impact our words and opinions can have.
It's good advice for all of us, especially in this age of social media where everyone has an opinion and wants to share it instantly. It really makes you wonder how this will all play out for Hansen in the long run. I mean, his whole career is built on his reputation, on people liking him and trusting him.
Right, and that's what's at stake here. Even if he's found not guilty, can he really come back from this? Will sponsors want to be associated with him? Will viewers still feel comfortable watching him on TV?
It's hard to say. It's a tough road back from accusations like these, regardless of the legal outcome.
And it kind of makes you question, like, does the entertainment industry have adequate safeguards in place to prevent this kind of thing from happening in the first place? You know, to protect people and prevent abuse of power.
Yeah, those are big questions.
Yeah.
And it makes you think about how we as a society hold public figures accountable for their actions, both on screen and off.
Definitely. It's a complex issue, for sure. There's a lot to unpack.
Well, we've covered a lot of ground today in this deep dive into the Fame files. So as we wrap things up, what's the one key takeaway you hope our listeners will walk away with?
I think more than anything, it's the importance of critical thinking. You know, not just accepting everything we see and hear at face value, especially in this age of instant information and social media. This case is a perfect example of how things aren't always as they seem. There's often more to the story than meets the eye.
We need to resist those knee-jerk reactions. Take a step back, consider different perspectives, and really think things through.
Exactly. And remember, real people are involved. Their lives and reputations are on the line. We need to approach these situations with empathy and a healthy dose of skepticism.
It's a good reminder for all of us. Well, this has been a really fascinating and honestly quite disturbing deep dive into the Fame files. It's a reminder that the world of fame and fortune isn't always as glamorous as it appears. There are real human stories behind the headlines, stories that deserve our attention and thoughtful consideration.
And it's a reminder that conversations about domestic abuse, about power dynamics, about accountability, these conversations are crucial. We can't shy away from these difficult topics.
Absolutely.
Well, thanks for joining us on this journey, everyone. We'll be back next time with another deep dive into the Fame files. Until then, stay curious and keep asking the tough questions.